President of the Constitutional Court of Spain, Sonia Sotomayor, Juan Luis, te acabo de ver llegar, Juan Luis Cebrián. All my dear friends, President of the German Constitutional Court and President of Dominican Republic Constitutional Court, President of the Slovenian Constitutional Court, President of the Guatemala Constitutional Court, of the Albanian Kosovo Constitutional Court, the Slovenian Supreme Court, Polish Supreme Court, distinguished trustees of the World Law Foundation, dear Patricia, dear Deborah, dear Vivian, President Levitz. It's amazing and it's very emotional to see the impact that this recognition has in a true hero of the rule of law. So Anthony Kennedy is 94 years old, and he's still full of passion. And his passion is set up in these bookmarks about the rule of law. He said to be contagious, to be living in a world ruled by laws and not by force, and to be living in a world where every human being has an oxygen, can breathe in an atmosphere that can protect their dignity, their freedom, their being as a human, as a member of this family, we human beings. So what we are doing today is, as King Felipe said in New York a few months ago, is to continue this campaign of remembering what is the purpose of a real society: fair treatment for equal citizens. And this starts by limiting the power by the Constitution, by the laws. So it is very critical that not just we members of the legal community, but every citizen understands that there are their own rights, and the Constitution is the only way to protect themselves from the abuse of power of anyone who has a power. So what we are doing today is learning from that generation that started this program when the world was at risk at war. We are not anymore at risk of war. We are at war. We have different wars. And this threat should be fought only by the rule of law. That was the weapon that these three gentlemen imagined almost 65 years ago. And they used the word pierce the iron curtain, perforar el telón de acero. So the iron curtain was there, but there was a way. And they started to talk. And they started, we had lunch 2 hours ago with the President of the German Constitutional Court, and we remember in 1985, 4 years before the fall of the Iron Curtain, this community of lawyers, judges and professors, they went to, that time, Eastern Berlin, Berlin East. So it was divided, the city was divided, the country was divided, the world was divided. But we control our relationships, and we decided at the time to establish, they decided to establish relationships and work together with countries like Russia, like China. That's what we want to keep doing, to be persons of peace through law. Anthony Kennedy is a person of peace. He's a free person that found a purpose and work. His whole life has been devoted to that purpose, which is to promote the rule of law. But if you are a tax lawyer, if you are a district judge, or if you are an associate professor in a university in Turkey, or whatever, you are also an architect of the rule of law. You are an ambassador of the rule of law. So we quoted this morning Professor Harbarth. Without the participation and adhesion of the community, there is no rule of law. We can have the best constitution, the best courts, but if people are not supporting and adhering the decision of the courts and the drafting and the provision of the laws, it is not going to work. So today, the threat is not anymore on the other side. The threat is inside, and not just Spain, But US, UK, Israel, Brazil, anywhere the discussion, Mexico, is about the rule of law. So the Japanese, we had this morning a Japanese speaker. The Japanese invented what they called quality circles. It was after the Second World War, and it was part of their miracle. Quality circles mean let's focus and let's repeat what works. Don't focus on what doesn't work. We need to correct what doesn't work. We need to penalize what doesn't work. But we don't want to establish the conversation about what doesn't work. Let's focus on what works. And that's the purpose, to make and organize this tribute to Anthony Kennedy. He could be a person that works for us. So it has been very complicated to organize this. 3 videos from Anthony Kennedy, one in the opening. We just heard another one about his concept of the rule of law. Now he's going to speak via Zoom. John Roberts' participation through video. You all came from different countries. President of the Constitutional Court flew yesterday night. He's flying today night. So very complicated. You are coming from different countries. 25 different countries in this room. But it's worth, because we found someone can be an inspiration. Someone who is really a role model of integrity and devotion to the rule of law. So let's go on. Let's try to connect not just with the ideas of Anthony Kennedy, but with the personality, with the person of Anthony Kennedy. We did that in 2020 with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't agree with everything that Ruth Bader Ginsburg thought. I don't agree with everything, probably with nobody, even not with my wife, especially with my wife here, Arancha. But I really admire them, and I love them, because they were really role models. I was handing to Sonia Sotomayor the book that we are very proud to have translated into Spanish, my own words. And I was sharing that with with President Harbarth. That is very interesting, because you learn a new life. You learn someone who came with the Hampton family, coming from all over, from the Eastern Europe, as a Jewish member of a family, and how the system works. Social system, educational system, legal system, and you learn her struggle to find a path in life, her struggle to make something that of impact for others as well. So she had a purpose. Probably at that time we didn't talk about purpose as much as we do today. She had a purpose from the beginning. Anthony Kennedy, he had a purpose from the beginning. We will see that in the video that we have prepared for him. And I said to the incredible staff of the World Jurist, what about these old images? We don't see them very clear. I say, no, but we should put them, because this guy is not who is today, is what is today, and what he has done from the early years of his career. So let's enjoy these few minutes where we're going to be celebrating his life. I remember his emotion when he came to New York, to the United Nations building, to be with us in the World Law Congress of July 2023. You saw there was the President of the European Commission, you saw the Prime Minister of Canada, different head of states from Latin America. What he wanted was to meet the king, the Spanish king, because something that you don't have in the US, you don't have a pope and you don't have a king. We don't have a pope, but we have a king. And you also mentioned to me what the impact that he really makes. So we are very lucky to have Anthony Kennedy with us. He wanted to be here, and tomorrow the idea was the king would be handing the medal to him. So 3 weeks ago he called me, and he told me, Javier, I had all the tickets, my wife, my grandson. I cannot move easily from one room to another, so I cannot come. So then I suggested the idea. Cándido told me, Sonia is going to be here on the 4th of March. What a coincidence. And I told Anthony, call Sonia and ask her to receive it for you. And so he did. And Sonia is here, very, very grateful, very, very, very happy. You represent the same thing that he represents in a different way. And we all follow what you are doing. We all respect you, admire you. I told you, you're a public figure. at least among us. And very happy to have you here, and very also humble that you are coming here to receive an award not for you, for Anthony Kennedy. This express how is the collegiality in your court and how is your heart. So thank you very much, and let's go on. Thank you very much.
We need to pause for just 1 minute to move furniture. Video next. Ready for the video? Okay, all right. We're going to begin with a video clip that will put us in mind of why Justice Kennedy is so incredibly deserving of this important award. You can run the video. Thank you.
Justice Anthony M. Kennedy of the Supreme Court of the United States. Justice Kennedy is a fitting honoree for WJA because he is a tireless and committed advocate for the rule of law as the path toward world peace. In 1963, he started practicing law in his hometown of Sacramento, California. The same year, Earl Warren, one of my predecessors as Chief Justice of the United States, helped lead the inaugural Congress of the WJA. Tony Kennedy became a judge 12 years later, in 1975. And over nearly a half-century on the bench, he has exemplified commitment to the highest ideals of the law. Like WJA, Justice Kennedy has worked to foster common cause across borders. He has traveled around the world to learn, to teach, and to help build an international community of respect for courts and the judicial process. He is a good listener who has remained curious and humble despite his towering contributions in the United States. And the WJA has chosen a fitting day to honor Justice Kennedy. 235 years ago, on March 4, 1789, the new Constitution of the United States came into effect. Justice Kennedy has been a guardian of that founding charter throughout his career. Today, I join you in celebrating him as a model of judicial decency and a champion for the friendships and cooperation that bind lawyers, judges, and other citizens of countries around the world. Congratulations and thank you to the WJA. Congratulations and thank you to Justice Kennedy.
Hello, I'm Mary Smith, President of the American Bar Association. My thanks to the World Jurists Association. On behalf of the ABA, I am pleased to continue our collaboration with the World Jurist Association, an alliance ignited by the Peace Through Law vision of former ABA President Charles Rhine. The WJA was born from the belief that the world should be governed by law, not by force. With the tide of autocracy surging around the globe, the WJA's dedication to this belief is more critical than ever. I also want to thank the World Jurist Association for highlighting judicial independence and the rule of law at today's tribute to Justice Anthony Kennedy. I want to congratulate Justice Kennedy for receiving this honor and for his commitment to the promotion of peace through law and the rule of law as a guarantor of freedom. Justice Kennedy's tenure on the Supreme Court exemplified a steadfast dedication to judicial independence and his meticulous balancing act between individual rights and governmental powers not only fortified the judiciary, but also paved the way for a more just and harmonious society. I extend my best wishes for a truly inspiring event.
I look forward, and I know Judge Kennedy is looking forward, to prompt hearings conducted in the spirit of cooperation and bipartisanship. I'll do everything in my power as president to assist in that process.
I share with you, Mr. President, and with each member of the Senate, an abiding respect for the Supreme Court, for the confirmation process, and for the Constitution of the United States, which we are all sworn to preserve and to protect. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
It is the purpose of your meeting and of this meeting to enhance that discourse and to find better ways for all of us to make sure that the rule of law does not slip away, that it does not slip away through direct attack or through indifference.
It's thought. It's central to our American tradition. It's central to the idea of the rule of law. And that is that there is a zone of liberty, a zone of protection, a line that's drawn where the individual can tell the government, beyond this line you may not go. The whole lesson of our constitutional experience has been that a people can rise above its own injustice, that a people can arise above the inequities that prevail at a particular time.
We are united in this idea that we have a moral framework that we share and that unites us in the rule of law. Every judge, every day, in every case, must ask himself, must ask herself, who am I? Why am I about to rule this way?
Remember that the essential feature of separation of powers, which is that there is a politically accountable branch of the government in the Congress, and a non-politically accountable, except in the most indirect sense, in the courts.
Our obligation is to define the liberty of all, not to mandate our own moral code. Liberty gives substantial protection to adult persons in deciding how to conduct their private lives in matters pertaining to sex.
I do not think that there is a choice between order and liberty. We can have both. Without ordered liberty, there's no liberty at all. And one of the highest priorities of society is to protect itself against the corruption and the corrosiveness and the violence of crime.
The fact that even though he identifies as a conservative Supreme Court justice, he was the swing vote in a number of incredibly important cases over the last several decades.
Humans are fallible, we tend to err, but law and literature both show us ways in which we can progress and mend our ways.
Your duty in every case is to ask, why are you doing what you're about to do? What are the reasons? And even if you've done it 100 times, you have to ask what those reasons are again and see if they are still valid. That's what you must do. It's introspective. And you owe that. You take an oath that you're going to listen to each side. And if you make up your mind in advance, you're not following that oath.
Just minutes after Justice Anthony Kennedy announced his retirement.
Thank you, Mr. President.
After 30 years serving on the Supreme Court, the moderate and many times key swing vote for liberals says he'll leave at the end of July.
I can be so strong and so certain in my views.
We must care about the rule of law. We must care and teach the meaning of human rights. which is the heritage of freedom. Thank you very much.
Please join me in welcoming back to the podium Stephan Harbarth, President of the Federal Constitutional Court of Germany, to the podium to deliver the laudatio for Justice Kennedy.
Dear President Cremades, Justice Sotomayor, President Conde Cupido, ladies and gentlemen, and above all, esteemed Justice Kennedy. There is no doubt that anyone who belongs to Anthony Kennedy's generation has experienced a great deal of fascinating things. This also includes the experience of something one can describe as bilocality, or being in two places in the world at the very same time. Today, both at home and at the other end of the world in Madrid at a ceremony in one's own honor. Justice Kennedy, I would like to first extend my very best wishes to you for your continued and speedy recovery. And let me also express my sincere thanks to Justice Sotomayor for joining us in Madrid for this special occasion today. Today we celebrate and honor a jurist who is among only a small group of justices with a tenure of over 30 years on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and who, according to countless contemporaries, has shaped the court term for term like few others in its long and distinguished history. In short, today we honor an exceptional, indeed a truly great jurist. I wish to also extend my thanks to the World Jurist Association for hosting this conference and ceremony. It was with greatest pleasure that I accepted the invitation of the World Jurist Association to offer this tribute today to Justice Kennedy. It might be somewhat surprising that this tribute be given by someone who belongs to both a different generation of jurists, one which, at the time Justice Kennedy took his oath of office, was still in secondary school, and to a different continent. The decision of our hosts to entrust today's appreciation to a younger generation from a different part of the world is no doubt a sign of the exceptional impact of Justice Kennedy's legal legacy on jurists all over the world, no matter where they are, no matter which generation they belong to. That was not, however, the only reason why I immediately accepted the WJA's invitation to present this award to Justice Kennedy. I was a student in the constitutional class at Yale Law School in the fall of 1999 when I first came into contact with the incredibly impressive opinions of Justice Kennedy. At that time, it was unthinkable for me that I might one day have the chance to meet him in person. When we did, in fact, meet in his office 2 years ago at the Supreme Court, I was all the more impressed by Justice Kennedy's amiability, warmth, and attentiveness as we discussed world affairs and the state of the rule of law. Once again, Justice Kennedy Thank you very much for that unforgettable experience. When Anthony Kennedy was born in Sacramento, California, on the 23rd of July 1936, the Second World War was yet to come. The charms of a small city with a fascinating history and rich cultural and social life, perhaps also the proximity to storied wine regions, have contributed to his lifelong attachment to his hometown. Even today, he lives in the home that once belonged to his parents. His parents, an attorney and a teacher respectively, both provided inspiration with regard to his eventual career. Sacramento's status as the capital of the state of California introduced Anthony Kennedy early on to public service, and not just through his politically minded home life. As a high school student, he was the youngest page in the Californian Senate. When the then Justice Kennedy on the Supreme Court had to reflect on the counter-majoritarian difficulty, he was able to draw on this earlier glimpse into the inner workings of the legislative branch. Anthony Kennedy studied at Stanford University in his native state, California, and kept his bachelor's degree with a year at the London School of Economics. In 1961, after exchanging the Pacific for the Atlantic coast, he obtained his law degree from Harvard Law School. Not long thereafter, Anthony Kennedy, who had spent a year serving in the National Guard and was working as an attorney, took over his father's well-established and flourishing law practice in his hometown after his father's untimely death. From this time period, Anthony Kennedy knows of the human stakes involved in legal proceedings from personal experience, which likely influenced his disinclination for all forms of dogmatic rigidity. The brilliant lawyer was also drawn to teaching in addition to the practice of law. In 1965, he began teaching constitutional law at the McGeorge School of Law in Sacramento and continued this work until 2019. He was an enthusiastic and inspiring professor and is, with 54 years of teaching, the longest-serving professor at the McGeorge School of Law, which, thanks to his efforts, has developed into a widely known and highly regarded law school. The work of Anthony Kennedy has been honored with, just to name a few examples, the Anthony Kennedy Endowed Fellows Program at McGeorge and the Justice Anthony M. Kennedy Library and Learning Center at the Robert T. Matsui United States Courthouse in Sacramento. In 1975, at the age of 38, Anthony Kennedy was appointed on the nomination of President Gerald Ford to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, at the time the youngest appointee ever to a federal court of appeals. In 1988, Anthony Kennedy was nominated by President Ronald Reagan under somewhat challenging circumstances as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, and he was overwhelmingly confirmed by the United States Senate with a vote of 97 to 0. With the average tenure of a Supreme Court justice being about 16 years, such a term of office is not so difficult to imagine for those of us justices elsewhere who are appointed for fixed terms. It pales in comparison, however, to Justice Kennedy's tenure. For over 30 years, he served as an active member of the United States Supreme Court. If I were merely to list the most well-known decisions of the Supreme Court during Justice Kennedy's tenure, it would take so much time that we would seriously endanger the further progress of this ceremony today. Even just limiting the decisions to only those on which the international news media reported on the opinion of Justice Kennedy, the list is impressively long. Not even a multi-day symposium would be enough to cover all the significant chapters of such an exceptional biography in the requisite breadth and depth. and any attempt at packing everything into a brief summary is ultimately bound to fail. Dear Justice Kennedy, there are just simply too many extraordinary moments and aspects in your life. So I hope you will forgive me if I, somewhat at the expense of our honoree, limit these remarks to a few highlights of his far-reaching jurisprudential influence and concentrate on the topic of freedom of speech, Justice Kennedy's role at the Supreme Court, and the substantial impact Justice Kennedy has had outside of his home country. It could well be said that freedom of speech is a favorite legal topic of Justice and Professor Anthony Kennedy, who has reminded us that freedom of speech includes criticism of the state and that democracy requires a tolerance of words or ideas that may be viewed as repellent. Or, as he put it himself, inconvenience does not absolve the government of its obligation to tolerate speech. The freedom of individuals from state limitations is a thread that runs throughout Justice Kennedy's opinions. As a well-read individual, Anthony Kennedy has compiled a list of works originally intended for his grandchildren that is dedicated to the subject of freedom. The works on this list range from Plato to Mark Twain and even include a number of Hollywood movies. They all have the common theme that, in the words of Chief Justice John Roberts, liberty is not merely freedom from restraint, but requires the exercise of both individual conscience and public responsibility. The words of Justice Kennedy from a meeting of the Salzburg Global Seminar, "We all are trustees of freedom," is still today a timely admonition. The unprecedented media attention to Justice Kennedy's announcement that on the 31st of July 2018, he would be ending his active status on the court reverberated around the world. This was not only due to the groundbreaking decisions of the Supreme Court during his tenure, among them cases concerning discrimination against homosexual persons, the application of the death penalty for juvenile offenses, the freedom of religion, and many more. The public reaction was due not least to the fact that Justice Kennedy, who had been acknowledged by his colleagues at the court as one of the most consequential jurists in recent years, was viewed in the public eye as a justice who, throughout many terms of the Supreme Court, occupied the median and whose position was thus decisive for countless decisions. According to the calculations of one of his colleagues, Justice Kennedy authored more than 500 opinions, many for the court and others as a concurrence or a dissent. They offer an almost unfathomable wealth of judicial analysis in all matters of cases. Justice Kennedy's opinions have been debated in countless law reviews as well as in the papers of record and many other fora. In an extensive profile of the early years of his tenure, the New Yorker dubbed him the agonizer. With this moniker, which alludes to the agony of a jurist that is either unseen or little understood by the general public, the article identified both the heavy burden and, perhaps unwittingly, one of the most integral aspects of judicial service and a testament to judicial responsibility. In 2012, Justice Kennedy was on the cover of the world-famous Time magazine, we saw it, which described him simply as the decider. This characterization may also be a reflection of Justice Kennedy's commitment to the duties and the function of the judiciary, which he has always done with verve and passion. From the perspective of the international legal public interested in the case law of the Supreme Court, the characteristics of Justice Kennedy's jurisprudence that stood out were, beyond the sheer statistics, his impressive rhetorical gifts and the manner in which his opinions trace the decision in a case back to the ironclad principles of the Constitution, which naturally makes them especially instructive. In the words of Justice Elena Kagan, quote, "What makes Justice Kennedy such an important figure, his independence, his integrity, his unique and evolving vision. Far from swinging between positions defined by others, Justice Kennedy has consistently chartered his own course," end quote. The loyalty of a judge to the law alone was something that Justice Kennedy made clear to the public by emphasizing that judges must sometimes reach decisions that they do not personally agree with in order to respect the law and the Constitution. The esteemed recognition that Justice Kennedy receives far beyond the borders of the United States of America, something accorded to very few jurists worldwide, is not just on account of his illustrious career in the US justice system. The source of this worldwide esteem is the outstanding service he has rendered to the international legal community over the decades. Even as a young attorney, Anthony Kennedy worked on cases that spanned international borders, which was by no means a matter of course for a law firm outside the major cities in those days. As a judge on the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, then Judge Kennedy seized the opportunity to see the world beyond the water's edge by accepting an appointment to serve as supervisor of the territorial courts of the United States in the South Pacific. In a number of his opinions for the Supreme Court, Justice Kennedy steadfastly, even in the face of criticism, nudged the perspective of the Supreme Court of the United States towards, as he put it, the values we share with a wider civilization and some underlying common shared aspiration existing across different legal systems. And I fully agree, glancing back and forth between one's own legal system and a foreign one, reflecting on the similarities and on the differences, is a fruitful way of developing greater insight into one's own law. Comparative law makes it temporarily possible to observe one's own legal system from a distance. The view from the outside allows one to get a better grasp of one's own law and provides the court with a reservoir of arguments. More powerful still may have been Justice Kennedy's advocacy for the rule of law on countless missions and teaching engagements outside his home country. Shortly before his appointment to the Supreme Court, Anthony Kennedy began his decades-long participation in teaching the summer program of his McGeorge School of Law in Salzburg, Austria, presumably combining this summer job with visits to the famous Salzburg Music Festival. Justice Kennedy's tenure also took place during a time of great upheaval in the world. With the fall of the Berlin Wall, if I may use this as a shorthand to describe how the world has changed since the end of the 1980s, there was an urgent need for guidance on constitutional law in many places in the world, for which Justice Kennedy, with great generosity, volunteered his time and expertise. The rule of law would become an overarching theme in his life. Justice Kennedy exalted, defended, and explained the rule of law not only to citizens of the United States of America, but also as an emissary in the wider world, whether it be at the Salzburg Global Seminar of American Studies or traveling with the International Judicial Relations Committee of the United States Judicial Conference. The descriptions of his lectures as fascinating, even mesmerizing, are no doubt due, in addition to Justice Kennedy's conviction for the importance of the rule of law for freedom, to his rhetorical gift for being able to engage people directly. Justice Kennedy has also been able to demonstrate his people-oriented pragmatism on the international stage. He crafted a bookmark with a succinct, readily understandable definition of the rule of law, which has been translated into many languages and adopted for use by a committee of the United Nations. I have already mentioned that Justice Kennedy incorporates what at first glance may appear to be contradictory qualities into a collective example of a truly great jurist. One final supposed paradox should also be addressed. In view of his legal brilliance and breathtaking career, it is especially noteworthy that time and again his contemporaries do not hesitate to highlight Anthony Kennedy's demeanor as a person, his unfailing civility, obligingness, and geniality. Justice Kennedy embodies the best of characteristics, in particular the constant respect for divergent viewpoints as the foundation on which freedom of speech and opinion can take place, public discourse can succeed, and democracy can flourish. His admonitions as to the significance of civility and rationality in political debate ring especially true in these turbulent times that the world has experienced in the years after Justice Kennedy's retirement from the court. Ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Kennedy has dedicated his life to jurisprudence and to public service, and has made the rule of law the subject of this WJA's conference, which has been full of stimulating discussions, his life's work. He has championed the rule of law with limitless, in the very sense of the word, enthusiasm and spirit. We say to you, Justice Kennedy, from the heart, thank you. Thank you for serving as a role model for jurists all over the world. Dear Justice Kennedy, on behalf of myself and for all of us, congratulations on receiving the Medal of Honor of the World Jurist Association. We wish you good health, together with your family, your wife, your children and your grandchildren, and the opportunity for future exchanges with you, hopefully soon again in person. Dear Justice Sotomayor, it is now my great honor to invite you to the stage to accept the Medal of Honor on behalf of Justice Kennedy.
I acknowledge and greet the distinguished president of the World Association of Jurists, Dr. Javier Cremades, fellow presidents and judges of courts of different countries, presidents of the ABA and of international bar associations, eminent professors and jurists, authorities and friends. Estoy encantada de estar aquí con ustedes y es un honor de poder recibir el premio en nombre de mi colega Justice Anthony Kennedy. Él tiene un tremendo respeto por esta asociación y sus miembros, y sé que él quiere mucho estar con ustedes personalmente. The Justice's doctors, for health reasons, however, advised him not to make this trip to Spain, as was his fervent wish. He told me to tell you that he will see you in Santo Domingo. Justice Kennedy is a dear friend of mine, and a man who reveres the rule of law, and the men and women who devote themselves to upholding its values. I express my congratulations to my friend Justice Kennedy for the award of the Medal of Honor of the World Jurist Association in recognition of his entire career, which he spent dedicated to strengthening and defending the rule of law and judicial independence as guarantor of peace, freedom, and the dignity of human beings. Now, you know the symbolism of him receiving this award. This organization was started, as you know, by Earl Warren, one of the most famous Chief Justices of the Supreme Court in the 20th century, and by the first president of the ABA, Charles Ryan. They reflected, through their motto, peace through law, their deep belief that the rule of law was the guarantor of peace. I am also proud to participate in this ceremony in the auditorium of the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation, which bears the name of another one of my friends, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. These are justices who have fought for the guarantee of fundamental rights, equality, and freedom of all citizens. I respect you all for your commitment to continue upholding the rule of law as the only alternative to the rule of force. And to this end, it is imperative to guarantee the supremacy of the Constitution and the independence of courts as the backbone of the law. Without them, the most essential rights and freedoms of our societies are seriously endangered. As His Royal Majesty King Philip VI emphasized when he received the World Peace and Liberty Award in 2019, and as history teaches us, quote, "Without respect for the laws, there is neither coexistence nor democracy, but insecurity and arbitrariness." As Justice Anthony Kennedy always reminded us, under the umbrella of the rule of law centered on the dignity of the human being, quote, "The law is superior to government and obliges government and all officials to comply with its precepts." Let me, Justice Kennedy, convey the very warm greetings from His Majesty the King Philip VI, with whom just this morning I had the opportunity to hold a private meeting. And he was very excited to be able to greet you personally when you were in the UN. He remembers you very fondly. Congratulations, Tony. Congratulations to the World Jurist Association. Gracias otra vez a ustedes por todo lo que hacen por el Estado de Derecho. Thank you.
All right, it is now my high privilege to welcome, hopefully through the miracles of modern technology, live from the United States Supreme Court, our extraordinary honoree, Justice Anthony Kennedy. Justice Kennedy, you have the floor.
And my colleagues on the court, and my family, our deepest thanks for this splendid award. It will inspire me in my remaining years to find new avenues, new ascents, new aspirations, new adventures on the path to the rule of law. His Majesty, the King of Spain, honors all of us by his recognition that the World Jurist Association brings the idea and the reality of the rule of law to so many parts of the world. And to President Javier Cremades, to Stephan Harbarth, and to all of you who have been so gracious, and to my own colleagues, the Chief Justice and Justice Sotomayor, and to so many distinguished members in our profession, in the judiciary, the bar, and the academy, please accept my warmest expressions of gratitude. You likely will agree with me, Justice Sotomayor, that the warm remarks from the Chief Justice exemplify the bond among all of us on our court, and your own kindness and courtesy in appearing here to help celebrate this award shows all of us the special bond of friendship between the two of us. Thank you, Justice Sotomayor, for your gracious presence here today. You make this event all the more memorable for me and everyone. This award should remind us all that we need to honor the rule of law with renewed commitment to its purpose as we continue to pursue our careers day to day, year to year. On earlier occasions when it's been my privilege to be with you, we had the hope and the fulfillment of coming away from the Congress with a renewed resolve to ensure a civility within our profession. And we must try to ensure that these same lessons, these same hopes and aspirations will inspire other nations to respect the dignity and the decency of all. This is what this association means. This is what this treasured medal means. This is what our oath of office as professionals must mean to us and to the people of every nation. My hope is to be with you in the Dominican Republic at the next World Congress. Between now and then, please be assured that it would be my honor and pleasure to meet and converse with you often. By conferring with each other from time to time, we can find ways not only to have closer friendship among us, but closer cooperation as we seek to bring respect for the rule of law to nations around the world. And as for the splendid medal you have given to me, let me quote from what England's great poet wrote: "For your gifts we can no other answer make, but thanks and thanks and ever thanks." Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justice Kennedy. And now I ask to the stage as witnesses to the bestowal of the award, Justice Cándido Conde Cupido, President of the Constitutional Court of Spain, President Javier Cremades of the World Jurist Association, President Harbarth of the Federal Constitutional Court of Germany, and my high privilege to welcome Justice Sonia Sotomayor, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, who is accepting the award on behalf of Justice Kennedy. President Cremades.
Oh, it's beautiful.
As you bestow the World Justice Association Medal of Honor to Justice Kennedy.
It's beautiful.
For his commitment to the independence of the judiciary and the defense of the rule of law in America and worldwide. Thank you, Justice Sotomayor, for receiving this honor on behalf of Justice Kennedy. President Cupido.
I should step down now.
I'm going to speak Spanish.
Justice, what a lovely ceremony. Congratulations.
Excelentísima señora Sonia Sotomayor, magistrada del Tribunal Supremo de los Estados Unidos. Excelentísimo señor don Javier Cremades, presidente de la Asociación Mundial de Juristas. Excelentísimos señores presidentes, vicepresidentes, magistrados y magistradas de los tribunales constitucionales supremos y supranacionales que nos acompañan. Miembros del Comité Organizador del Congreso Mundial de Derecho, autoridades, señoras y señores. Quisiera empezar mi intervención señalando la satisfacción que supone para mí encontrarme con todos ustedes en la clausura de la sesión inaugural y en la antesala del próximo Congreso de la Asociación Mundial de Juristas que celebrarán el próximo año 2025 en la capital de la República Dominicana. Y en este acto tan entrañable en el que se ha producido un homenaje al excelente magistrado don Anthony Kennedy. Agradezco sinceramente al presidente de la asociación, don Javier Cremades, su amabilidad por invitarme a participar en este evento que reúne a prestigiosos juristas y operadores jurídicos de todo el mundo. Asimismo, hago extensivo este agradecimiento al comité organizador del evento y les felicito por su trabajo. Y, por supuesto, me gustaría trasladar mi felicitación a mis colegas del Poder Judicial de la República Dominicana, país en el que siempre me encuentro como en casa y quienes tendrán el honor de organizar el próximo Congreso. Un cometido tan ambicioso como el de organizar un Congreso Mundial siempre es causa de admiración por los desafíos que entraña, y hablo desde el pleno conocimiento porque el Tribunal Constitucional Español se ha embarcado en una aventura similar tras nuestra elección como anfitriones del 6º Congreso de la Conferencia Mundial de Justicia Constitucional, que tendrá lugar el próximo año 2025 en Madrid y que reunirá a los más altos representantes de las jurisdicciones constitucionales de 121 países. Teniendo en cuenta lo anterior, valoro con afecto y reconozco con aplauso la labor continua de la Asociación Mundial de Juristas, que viene desarrollando desde hace más de 60 años, siempre con el firme objetivo de fomentar el diálogo cooperativo sobre la paz mundial, el Estado de Derecho y el sistema de justicia. Estas son algunas de las razones por las que lamento no haber podido acompañarles durante las sesiones de trabajo que han mantenido en el día de hoy, pero como quizá ya sepan, este evento ha coincidido con el acto organizado por el Tribunal Constitucional, en el que hemos tenido el honor de contar con la participación especial de la magistrada del Tribunal Supremo de los Estados Unidos, la señora doña Sonia Sotomayor. Casualmente, este año la Asociación Mundial de Juristas ha decidido otorgar la medalla de honor al magistrado emérito del mismo Tribunal Supremo de los Estados Unidos, don Anthony Kennedy. Dada la imposibilidad del magistrado de participar personalmente, le hemos visto y quiero acompañarle en este aplauso y felicitación que le ha dado todos los personales presentes en este momento. Aprovecho para transmitirle mi más sincera enhorabuena por este galardón, en el que se le reconoce más si cabe su trayectoria profesional en el mundo jurídico a nivel internacional. Con ello, el magistrado Kennedy se une al elenco de grandes juristas estadounidenses que han recibido esta distinción y, por qué no decirlo, también al Tribunal Constitucional, porque la asociación en el año 2019 otorgó la medalla de oro al propio Tribunal Constitucional con carácter colectivo para todos sus magistrados en la Asamblea General celebrada en Málaga. Señoras y señores, el lema de la Asociación Mundial de Juristas, la paz a través del derecho, me genera una pequeña reflexión. La paz es una cuestión que, entendida más allá de su sentido negativo, como ausencia de conflictos, también nos incumbe a los operadores jurídicos siempre dentro de los límites de nuestras propias competencias, ya sea a través de la creación o aplicación de las normas, o mediante su interpretación o control. Todos los operadores jurídicos afectamos e incidimos en la protección del Estado de Derecho y los derechos fundamentales y con ello en la resolución pacífica de cualquier tensión social. Al fin y al cabo, toda la historia de la humanidad no es más que una larga marcha para la solución de conflictos desde la fuerza hasta el derecho. El derecho como instrumento de solución pacífica de conflictos es el que acaba creando precisamente el Estado de Derecho y la independencia de los tribunales. Un ejemplo de ello es la Constitución española, nuestra ley de leyes, que el pasado 6 de diciembre cumplió 45 años y que es un tesoro jurídico más valioso que tenemos los españoles. Desde este espíritu, España ha llegado a ser una de las más consolidadas y abiertas democracias del mundo. El constituyente previó expresamente que el consenso que dio lugar a la Constitución podría derivar también en debates, contrastes y puntos de vista enfrentados propios de las sociedades democráticas plurales y abiertas. Y de esta preocupación nació la necesidad de establecer normas vinculantes para todos los poderes públicos y la creación del Tribunal Constitucional que actualmente me honro en presidir. En este sentido, el Tribunal Constitucional de España es consciente de la responsabilidad que la Constitución le encomienda como intérprete supremo y guardián jurídico, guardián de la libertad, como se expresa en el frontispicio del Tribunal Supremo de los Estados Unidos, que se refiere precisamente a Justice, Guardian of Liberty. Señoras y señores, vemos que el Estado de Derecho, el imperio de la ley y la paz son conceptos estrechamente ligados. Somos conscientes de que no puede existir democracia ni paz sin disfrutar de los derechos humanos, como tampoco puede haber tal disfrute sin el respeto escrupuloso de la Constitución y de la ley democrática. Como condición necesaria para alcanzar el más alto nivel de protección del Estado de Derecho, los operadores jurídicos, los órganos judiciales y los distintos poderes tenemos la obligación de preservar la separación de poderes y la independencia judicial. La independencia judicial es la base de la confianza en los tribunales y constituye una garantía con la que deben contar los ciudadanos para la resolución pacífica de los conflictos. Solo garantizando esta independencia transitaremos por el camino adecuado hacia la paz y hacia la convivencia social en libertad. Queridos colegas, termino ya. Nuestras instituciones se han esforzado por alcanzar la preeminencia de la ley sobre la arbitrariedad, la preeminencia de la pluralidad sobre la exclusión y la preeminencia de la igualdad sobre la desigualdad. Creo firmemente que los juristas y los operadores jurídicos necesitamos confiar en el derecho y en la legitimidad de su misión, y esta confianza solo se puede alcanzar cuando la ley resulta producto de la razón y es consentida por todos, cuando la ley se revela útil y cumple su función ordenadora, cuando la ley es apreciada como un factor de progreso y de paz social, y en definitiva, cuando la ley preserva y promueve los derechos del ciudadano y al mismo tiempo favorece al conjunto de la sociedad. Continuemos esforzándonos por no perder este legado que la Asociación Mundial del Derecho está empeñada en reforzar de manera continuada y debemos todos agradecérselo y a su presidente, aquí presente, don Javier Cremades. Debemos mejorar y enriquecer nuestro legado de siglos que ha construido el Estado de Derecho, teniendo siempre presentes nuestros principios y valores constitucionales en nombre y en beneficio de todos los ciudadanos. No cabe, por tanto, ninguna duda de que el derecho es el camino adecuado hacia la paz. Y finalizo, por tanto, esta intervención deseándoles los mejores éxitos en el Congreso Mundial de Derecho que tendrá lugar el próximo año en la República Dominicana, a cuyo presidente o expresidente del Tribunal Constitucional saludo atentamente y a su presidente, nuevo presidente, efectivamente también. Muchas gracias a todos por su atención.